Hey everybody, it's Kneecap here, and in this video we have some more Retribution Paladin raid testing, this time Heroic Silken Court on the War Within beta. This is second to last boss, so there's a lot more mechanics and stuff on this boss as you might expect than some of the earlier bosses, even on Heroic, and we'll go through those and we'll also talk about how this fight affects Retribution Paladins, what kind of build that I attempted to use, and things like that as well. So we'll get the fight started here, and you can see there's two mobs. So you're thinking, okay, let's try to get some cleave in here, and that is the case. However, one second. First, we're going to talk about these green circles. These are just a poison, and you want to spread these out. Most notably, if you have it, you don't want to be in somebody else's circle. If you do not have it, at least on Heroic, it's fine to stand in one person's circle, but not to stand in overlapping of circles or whatever, because it does stack. The debuff stacks on you, and so you do want to spread these out pretty well. And you, at least on Heroic difficulty, you can easily stand in one and be fine. If you're somebody who does not have the circle, you can take a stack of it. One stack doesn't seem to do much, at least on Heroic, under this tuning. But yeah, so we have a kind of a cleave setup here, 2-target cleave, and then there are some small adds that can come out as well. However, the bosses do jump around and move quite a bit throughout the fight, and so it'll kind of be up to your tanks to try to keep these stacked together as much as possible. For me personally, the pulls where since I was trying to do kind of a bit of a cleave thing with Judge Your Executioner, when they stacked them, it was a lot better. Let's talk a little bit about this webbing. Let's go back just a little bit here. Okay, so you can see really well up here these webs. So what's important about this mechanic is this is how you handle the main mechanic for the big tank looking guy, Nubarak or Nubasak, whatever his name is. So two people walk into one of these webbings and they will both become webbed together. And you're going to use that line of webbing. So imagine two people, and maybe you'll even see it here if I pan the camera correctly. You'll see people, and later in the video you will see it for sure. You'll see people lined with webbing, and there's a line between them, and you're going to have to kind of cross the gap, if you will. His charge animation's on the ground, and you need the people to stand on either side of it with the web. If you go too far, it breaks. You don't want to break it. You want to keep it together, and when he charges through it, it stops him from hitting the wall, which likely on Mythic is going to be a wipe. He's going to hit the wall, and then instead he doesn't hit the wall and he gets tangled up in the webs. So it's actually a pretty cool mechanic overall. It might be a little bit annoying. Ranged handled this in our group exclusively, so I didn't have to worry about it. I did get it later on in the fight. It changes a little bit, whereas people just have the web and you just have to kind of do it. You don't have to intentionally go pick up the web, but you get a little bit of time here to do a little bit of damage. You see a big stack of people under there. That wasn't good. So this is the charge animation. So the big guy tunnels under. You can still see the webs here too, so this is perfect. So these people have the webs. You need 2 on Heroic. I don't know how many it is on Mythic, but on Heroic you need 2 of these web things across, splitting this gap. He's going to charge through it, and it's going to stop him from hitting the wall. The animation sometimes kind of looks like he hit the wall still, but it does not do the damage. So we'll let him charge there. Here he is all wrapped up. He takes a little bit of a damage boost as well. It's very short though. So it's not long enough to get an execution sentence in, but it could be, a good time to have your Wake of Ashes ready, for example, and Hammer of Light if you're running Templar while he takes that damage buff. If you can time it that way. You'd never want to hold it too long or anything, but if you only have to hold it a couple seconds, then that could be something really good to do there. Here we're just going to see kind of repeat of mechanics here. Again, cleaving as much as I can, but the caster boss kind of likes to hop around, and then of course the big guy, he goes underground when he does his charge. Here you can see some of the adds. Now these need to be kited, so in a perfect setting, right, you're going to kite these under the boss. I think they can be CC'd at least for a while. I don't know exactly what the rules on the CC of these are, but you can, if they were kited towards the boss, let's say everybody's on the big tank guy, and you kite them towards him, and then they're CC'd, then you could blow them up, for example. We weren't really doing that because we're kind of getting away with not having to do it, but I imagine that's what probably you're going to have to do on Mythic difficulty, something along the lines of that. So yeah, we're going to continue here, and we're going to get to this first intermission here pretty soon. I think he's going to do one more charge. We might skip ahead. Let's see if there's anything good else to mention. So here comes the next charge. So it's with a poison thing. I got to run out. Right now I have no damage. We'll talk about that when it comes to Ret Paladins. 2 webs. He's webbed. He's taking extra damage. And here shortly we're going to go into here. We'll get to the start of this intermission. So we're about to start the intermission. He tunnels away. And now here we have the caster one, or I call it the caster one. They don't really cast that much, but so these webbings come out, and basically they're going to shoot out. On heroic difficulty, this does not one-shot you. I imagine on mythic, based on the damage, it still might not one-shot you, but you don't want to get hit by this. It knocks you really far away, and you're basically trying to break a damage shield, right? So it's kind of like a DPS check in a way. Basically, the first web that comes out, you just kind of want to stand next to that web, at least on heroic difficulty. With mythic difficulty, it might change where standing in web does damage. For this, the only damage is if you get knocked by the knockback. So let's say the web to my right was the first one, which maybe it was, and maybe this is the knockback actually here. So that web's going to go away whenever it does, and then I'm going to step into that. I think maybe during this fight I actually do get knocked back once, so you can actually see it not do damage. But after it fires off, so that one fired off. Now I can freely move over here and not get knocked back. You can see two people got knocked back. They're completely fine. Not a big deal. All right, so I'm inside this one. I want to get out of it. Oh, no. So this is the one where I got hit. I did not get out of it fast enough. I could tell the second time. Another web comes down. Now this continues to happen even after you break the shield. You have to finish this out, at least the way it is now. So I waited for that to go. And now we're going to get into the second phase of this fight. I almost got hit by that one by trying to get out of the other cleave. So this one's just going to be a little bit different. So instead of worrying about the webs and entangling, excuse me, the big guy, there's going to be like a poison that goes out. And this poison needs to be dispelled on, I keep calling it the caster, just because this guy's like a big tank looking guy, on the caster one. So this is a mechanic that sucks you in and you just run out of it. This is like a mechanic that happened all the time in Castle Nathri, I feel like. But you're going to get this poison, and you're going to want to dispel it on the caster while it's about to do a big one-shot ability, essentially. It has a very powerful ability on... It almost one-shots on Heroic. It'll certainly one-shot on Mythic, and you're going to... And just like the charge into the wall will, right? It's the same thing. And then you dispel the poison, so you can see... Oh, we just missed it there. Let's go here. We can see... poison debuff. We have 3 of them: Paladin, Mage, Death Knight, up here in the top left. They're all going to be around him, and I think we do a mass dispel here, so you'll probably see all 3 of them go away at the same time, and we'll take a small amount of damage, and then that boss actually takes increased damage when you put all the poisons on it as well. So you could switch to that boss at that point. Here you can see me with the web. This is used in phase 3 in order to, and maybe we're transitioning to phase 3 here. The web's no longer on the floor that you have to go pick up. You just, at least on heroic difficulty, you're just webbed to somebody for a certain amount of time. So you want to stay close to them so you don't break it, but then you're going to split the gap. Now in this final phase, I found, at least for me, it seemed like, right now is not a good example, but it seemed like the bosses were stacked together. Oh, because this isn't phase 3 yet. We're about to go to second intermission. Second intermission is actually kind of fun. So it's a pull-in. That's why. I thought it was like at 50%, but maybe it's a little bit less than 50 or something. So we're going to see second intermission first before we get ahead of ourselves and head to phase 3. I actually liked phase 3. All right, so this boss just had the poison dispelled on him. That's why it's walking around like silly. I think it has to do 2 casts of its super ability. And now this intermission. So I actually get hit by this on this intermission. So we have a bunch of swirlies coming out here. So this one's, we're going to talk about Ret Paladin stuff here shortly. And this one's going to be like, yeah, this is a lot of movement. And we just have our horse. You just have to kind of be smart with it. You know, I bubbled out of it. I survived it, bubbled out of it. Before anybody saw me, because they were kind of making fun of people for getting hit by this in the Discord. But I bubbled out of it really quickly. Trying to use my horse here, just kind of running. And yeah, it's a crazy intermission, but it's really easy overall, right? You definitely want to have 2 charges of Cavalier for this, Cast a nice little battle res here. And here we go into phase 3. They're already really, really low health. And yeah, so now we're going to get a lot more stacking. At this point, I'm able to do a little bit more damage because of that. And you're basically going to have, so there's a nice little, almost like a Smolderon type thing going on here. And then you're just going to have aspects of the phase 1 and phase 2, basically, as you finish out the fight. And this is, probably where you want to pop your Bloodlust on Mythic. I don't know that for sure by any means, but probably when you have more uptime on your 2-target cleave for everybody. And, the phase in theory is harder. Here you see me, Web. So this is what I was trying to point out earlier when I pointed it out too early. So he's going to do his charge here. And I'm like, okay, I have Web, so I'm just going to do this, try to get close to my guy. We got people across. Luckily, we only need 2 because those people did not do it. And the web still did not break. I don't know why that is necessarily, but it does just fade off at some point, and then it re-webs some new people. I think that's just how it works in this final phase. Maybe they want to get rid of that animation or whatever after, when the fight's ready to go live or whatever. But we're just going to keep DPSing. No big deal. I think maybe that does the poisons as well. I didn't really get a chance to interact with the poisons because I never got the poison on me. Okay, yeah, so here we see the poison. So the poison, that's going to get dispelled on the middle guy again. We'll go right here to the end of the fight. We got another Smolderon thing going on as we finish off the 2 bosses here. And we're going to get sucked again one more time. Gotta have a little bit of movement to get out of there. That's a good time for like Stampeding Roar or Windrush Totem, things like that. Obviously, we have some frontals going on. Nothing big to talk about there. One boss falls, next boss falls, and there we have it. So that's Silken Court. I thought this fight was pretty fun overall. It's a lot of movement. It's not melee friendly by any means, but I do think once people know the fight and they're able to stack the bosses, melee might have a little bit better time. But by no means is it a melee-friendly fight. I will say that. So let's talk now about I mentioned a few things. I'm running on my horse and stuff about Rep Paladin. Let's talk about how this fight affects Rep Paladin. This is the spec I ended up going with for the kill. This is a I'm trying to focus very heavily on single targets because a lot of the fight I'm only single targeting. Period. So it's a very heavy single target build. I do have one into Blessed Champion. I do have Blade of Vengeance Cleave on as well. There's really no point in Divine Storming at all unless it's that final phase where you have them all. Maybe you could use Final Reckoning and Divine Storm just for phase 3 with Heroism, with Bloodlust. Maybe that would make it worth it. By no means am I saying this spec is correct. I fiddled with it a few times. We didn't take too many pulls to get this boss down, but I fiddled with it a little bit. This is just what I settled on for what we killed it with. And yeah, it seemed to work out a little bit. So I was really trying to emphasize Judge Your Executioner here for this fight. It's definitely a good fight to have it, but obviously for phase 1 and phase 2, you really need the tanks to be on it. And what's going to happen is if on Mythic difficulty you can't stack them for some reason, or if on Mythic difficulty, something happens to where they're together even less, then you would just take straight single target and you wouldn't even take Judge Your Executioner. It might be nice to have on the ads when they're kited in. You could argue that, and it is nice for phase 3. So if you could reliably kite the ads in, then maybe still you'd take the cleave, but because it's so spread out, because the bosses move so much, it's not the traditional 2-target cleave that I was hoping it was going to be coming into the fight. The final phase kind of is, let me emphasize that. But the first 2 phases are not really that 2-target cleave that I was hoping this fight would be to test out Judge Your Executioner to its fullest extent. But it's still it'll be better than what my group did, right? It was like our 5th pull, and that first time everybody's seeing the boss, right? It did not take us many pulls to do this. I got into a pretty good group for this, and I'm hoping to join that group again tomorrow if possible. So for the Mythic testing, I'm recording this the day of. So yeah, other than that, a lot of movement. Like I said, not melee friendly. You'll want 2 charges of Cavalier. Being Templar is extra good because of the extra bit of horse that you get as well, Divine Seed that you get. Yeah, it's not very friendly for casters, this is going to be a very good fight, right? Like Shadow Priest, Warlock, those are going to be the top things there. Anything that can do really far split cleave boomkins, I imagine, might be decent for this fight as long as they're tuned correctly. You can see a warrior at the top of our damage meter here. I would say take that with a little bit of grain of salt. He was clearly a good player, but he was getting power infusion by the priest on cooldown. So he got every single power infusion that the priest used. So take that with a little bit of grain of salt. I think he was pretty much full single target, and just that's basically just his single target power infusion DPS. And so take that with a little bit of grain of salt when it comes to seeing that at the top. The Warlock, this is a very good Warlock fight. It's a very good Shadow Priest fight. The DK did pretty well. The Mage also had power infusion, so that's another one that maybe take it with a little bit of grain of salt there. I think realistically, I could have been maybe up to third. Like if I played perfectly and there was no power infusion, or I was receiving power infusion, right? I think I could have possibly got out all the way up to third in damage for this group. And this was a group of good players. This wasn't, a lot of times I talk about maybe there being a bit of a skill gap. This is a group of good players. So if there's any skill gap, it's small, whether it's them being better than me or me being better than them. There's going to be a smaller skill gap for this particular group. So, yeah, so as far as Paladin actual DPS goes, I think it's kind of fine. Again, it's going to be refined if you can keep the bosses together more, or get them there quicker, get the adds to the boss, right? Playing Judge, Jury, Executioner is going to be very profound in that case, whereas I was not getting a lot of value out of it for this. It was almost a wasted talent point to some extent for large portions of the fight, where I don't think that'll be the case necessarily if things can be done quicker or better or whatever with practice and everything like that. So again, for damage, I keep saying I think Paladin is kind of like top 3 to top 5 in this particular group. Like I said, I'd probably be again, if I played very well, I wouldn't say I played great. I played okay, just learning the fight and stuff. If I played very well and no power infusions, I think I would have probably just been behind like the Warlock and the Shadow Priest, right? And maybe the DK and the Warrior would be like right there with me as well, because the DK consistently played well throughout the day as well. It's hard to say with the Warrior with all the power infusions, but he played very well too. Again, these are good players. I'm nothing to crap on these players for. So, but it felt good. I don't think this is a great fight for Ret. Because of the fact that it's such a high movement fight, right? A lot of running out. Got to run out from the caster boss and get sucked in and stuff like that, right? Tunneling, having to run across the entire map. Like it's not going to be very friendly without like a leap, a charge, a blink. Instant movement is going to be the key for this fight. Our movement's good for dodging things, with a long horse or a long divine steed. That's good for dodging things, but it's not necessarily good for getting across the room in a very, very timely manner. So I think this is going to be a fight that's kind of similar to the council fight in Amito, except for in that fight, you could actually kind of keep at least 2 of the adds on each other, right, for most of the time for that fight. Whereas this fight, you're probably going to have times where it's just solo. And there's going to be a lot of running around if you want to get on the correct target or, whatever target you want to get on. In this case, there's going to be a lot of running around. So, again, not super melee friendly. It's not going to be a fight that's friendly towards Ret. If you have many casters, many split cleave in your group, you're going to be probably lower than all of them, right? As far as damage goes, even if you're the best player in your guild or whatever. It's just not going to be a fight that's made for you as a Ret Paladin. But overall, I was still able to enjoy it for the most part, and thought it was a bit interesting. And I don't think it was overly hard. I don't know what the mythic changes are on it though. And it was kind of nice. In this case, sometimes long fights or fights with multiple intermissions can be annoying. One thing I want to highlight is I thought the intermissions were like a nice break, and then neither phase 1 nor phase 2 was super punishing in terms of like phase 1's all about learning how to do the webs across the charge. Phase 2 is all about learning how to do the poison. And then phase 3 is a little bit more chaotic, but phase 3 is also more fun because you're getting to you know, cleaved AoE slash AoE or whatever. So it's kind of a nice progression learning fight, in my opinion. You're gonna master phase 1, and then you're always gonna do phase 1 right. It's not that you're not gonna master phase 1 and then start wiping in phase 1. You're gonna master phase 2, then you're always gonna do phase 2 right, and then you'll have probably some learning in phase 3 on Mythic or something like that. But I kind of like when fights work like that personally, where you don't constantly keep getting punished in phase 1. Phase 1's not going to be the hardest phase in this fight, so I think that's a good thing. But yeah, that'll be it for this one. This was one of my longer ones for these because this is one of the more enjoyable bosses, frankly, that I did so far. A lot of good learning and in a really good group. Which, if you're doing any testing on beta yourself, do yourself a favor and try to log in early before there's a big test thing coming on. Try to find a good group, because it really makes a big difference if you have a good group for these. So that'll be it for this one. As always, I do ask you to please subscribe to the channel because it helps me out a lot. If you're already a subscriber, I encourage you to check out the Patreon. And other than that, everybody have a good one.